In this video, we're going to take a look at the developments that took place in Season 7, Episode 2 of The Curse of Oak Island. But first, I'd like to tell you about one of my favorite sections of my new book, The Oak Island Encyclopedia. If you flip to the back of the book, you'll find an alphabetically listed index containing just about every word or phrase to ever be associated with the Oak Island mystery. If you're wondering whether a certain historical character has ever been mentioned in connection with an Oak Island theory, or if you'd like a refresher on the various artifacts that have been discovered on Lot 21, or if you'd like to read up on a topic that the show fails to flesh out, just flip to the back of the book, look up the subject in question, and follow the page numbers directing you to the various sections of the book in which the subject is mentioned. This book is available on Amazon and would make a great Christmas gift for any fan of The Curse of Oak Island. To get yourself a copy, please click on one of the links in the description. Season 7, Episode 2 of The Curse of Oak Island begins in the swamp, where Choice Drilling is busy retrieving core samples of the mysterious ship anomaly indicated by the results of the seismic survey carried out at the end of the previous season. The first core sample, taken from a depth of 13 to 16 feet below the swamp floor, contains little aside from mud and organic matter. A second core sample, taken from 18.5 to 21.5 feet, is composed of dry, crumbly clay. A third sample, taken at a depth of 30 feet, contains more of the same dry clay. Marty Lagina observes that this sample also contains a fragment of what he calls cap rock, a term used in the petroleum industry denoting a hard rock layer which overlies weaker material, forming an impermeable barrier which prevents the flow of fluids from one side of the rock to the other. Marty theorizes that the presence of such rocks might explain the dryness of the sediment beneath the swamp. The drill seizes up when the contractors attempt to advance beyond 30 feet, prompting Choice Drilling to abandon the hole and begin a new one at another location within the ship anomaly. Later in the episode, the second hole yields a number of core samples taken from depths of up to 50 feet. All these samples are absent of wood and any other evidence which might indicate the presence of a ship, which some members of the team hoped the ship anomaly might constitute. In the middle of the episode, Rick and Marty Lagina meet with geoscientist Dr. Ian Spooner of Acadia University and show him some of the core samples taken from beneath the swamp. Dr. Spooner observes that the sediment from the samples contains a high concentration of clay, which, he states, is a characteristic of marine environments. He also remarks that the samples contain less organic matter than he would expect to find in an ancient wetland, and concludes that the swamp floor likely constituted sea bottom at some point in the relatively recent past. The scientist agrees to conduct a more thorough examination of the core sample material in his lab, the results of which are forthcoming. Dr. Spooner's hypothesis that the swamp was once covered by seawater is consistent with the theory that Oak Island is an artificial conjunction of two distinct islands, separated at the spot at which the swamp now lies. It also conflicts with a handful of oak stumps which have been discovered in the swamp over the years. In addition to those recovered by Dan Blankenship decades ago, these include the stump discovered at the Mercy Point area in Season 2, Episode 1, which was carbon dated from 1450 to 1640, as well as the stump which Tony Sampson discovered in Season 4, Episode 3, which appeared to be rooted to the swamp floor. The presence of oak stumps in the Oak Island swamp hints at the possibility that the swamp area once comprised dry ground, in which oak trees were able to take root. A notion which appears to conflict with the idea that the swamp area was covered by seawater in the not-so-distant past. Later in the episode, Rick Lagina, Dan Henske, and Gary Drayton head to Oak Island's Lot 21 to do some metal detecting. Once the site of the old McGinnis family cabin, Lot 21 is the area at which the Oak Island crew discovered the glass brooch in Season 6, Episode 1, a French grenadier's hat badge in Season 6, Episode 5, and a lead cloisonné in Season 6, Episode 18, the isotopic signature of which proved to be identical to that of the lead cross found at Smith's Cove. On this latest excursion, the trio discovers two hefty triangular pieces of iron with large holes through their middles. Although Gary Drayton initially suspects these artifacts to be the heads of quarry hammers, blacksmithing expert Carmen Legg later identifies them as crude swage blocks used for sharpening rock drills. Legg claims that such artifacts are very rare and dates them from 1450 to 1750. He also opines that their presence on the island is suggestive of, quote, some major mining or tunneling operation, unquote, evoking the theory that the original money pit builders tunneled beneath Oak Island's bedrock. One facet of this theory, which was not mentioned in this episode, is the argument put forth by the late Oak Island theorist David Hanson, which holds that 16th century English explorer and privateer Sir Martin Frobisher discovered iron pyrite or fool's gold on Oak Island by chance in 1575. In a misguided effort to encourage the Queen to finance future voyages, the Englishmen sailed back to Britain with the erroneous news that they had discovered gold in the North Atlantic. With the approval of Queen Elizabeth I, English mining engineer Thomas Bushell and a crew of Cornish miners sailed to Oak Island, where they spent 2 years sinking shafts and digging tunnels beneath the island, extracting iron pyrite ore from the earth. When the Britons returned to England with their worthless haul, the Queen considered the fraud so humiliating that she erased all records of the incident. Hammerson believed that a crew of Englishmen later returned to Oak Island and interred treasures of great value within Bushell's mine shafts. Specifically, Hammerson believed that these treasures consisted of the original handwritten plays and sonnets of William Shakespeare, which he argued were actually penned by English nobleman Edward de Vere, the corpse of de Vere himself, and the lost treasure of the Plantagenet dynasty, lost by King Richard III of England during the 1485 Battle of Bosworth Field. Later in the episode, Craig Tester, Doug Crowell, and Laird Niven take GPR experts Don Johnston and Steve Watson to a feature called the Cave-in Pit, around which they ask them to conduct a GPR scan. The story of the Cave-in Pit begins in 1875, when an Oak Island resident named Sophia Sellers went out to plow her father's field with a team of oxen. When she reached a particular part of the field, the ground on which the oxen and plow stood suddenly gave way, as if the earth beneath had sunk into some sort of subterranean void. As it turned out, the ox team had disappeared into a 10-foot deep pit measuring about 7 feet in diameter. Interestingly, this sinkhole was located about 350 feet east of the money pit, precisely along the line connecting the money pit with the box drains at Smith's Cove, the hypothetical line of the notorious Smith's Cove flood tunnel. Even more intriguingly, when treasure hunters attempted to excavate the cavity in the summer of 1895, they encountered seawater at a depth of 55 feet, which rose and fell with the tide. Ever since, treasure hunters have theorized that this feature, dubbed the Cave-in Pit, was the site at which the creators of the flood tunnel dug a shaft for air. When the Oak Island workings were completed, the diggers secured the roof of the flood tunnel at that vulnerable section before filling in the air shaft with dirt. When Sophia Sellers' heavy plow and oxen stepped on the backfilled ventilation shaft, the supports that held up the roof of the flood tunnel at that location gave way, partially caving in the flood tunnel below. In this episode, Don Johnston and Steve Watson discover several anomalies in the vicinity of the Cave-in Pit, one of them 25 meters or 82 feet below the surface, and the other 28 meters or 91 feet deep. Craig Tester remarks that these depths roughly correspond with the depth at which the flood tunnel is believed to lie in the area of the Cave-in Pit. Perhaps Johnston and Watson have indeed located the Smith's Cove flood tunnel. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and would like to help support this channel, please check out my book, The Oak Island Encyclopedia, which you can find by clicking the link in the description.